Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In the continuation of reading Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, check. You would open the door of the apartment, and thousands of cockroaches would disappear into the woodwork, and the smell was enough to knock you over. So Keith was trying to clean the place up and kick some people out. They were sharing their rent. Wally, Keith, Howard, and several others. Due to a lack of any other process, they were using LSD to try and increase their spiritual life. Actually, we were all trying to use drugs to help in meditation. Anyway, Wally, Howard, and Keith were trying to find the perfect spiritual master, as we all were. Howard remembers his own spiritual seeking as reading books on Eastern philosophy and religion, burning lots of candles and incense, and taking ganja and peyote and LSD as aids to meditation. Actually, it was more intoxication than meditation. Meditation was a euphemism that somehow connected our highs with our readings. Keith, 29, the son of Southern Baptist minister, was a PhD candidate in history at Columbia University. He was preparing his thesis on the rise of reval- revivalism in the southern United States. Dressed in old denim cutoffs, sandals, and t-shirt, he was something of a guru among the Mott Street coterie. Valley was in his 30s, shabbily dressed, bearded, intellectual, and well read in Buddhist literature. He had been a radio engineer in the army and, like his roommates, was unemployed. He was reading Alan Watts, Herman Hesse, and others talking about spiritual enlightenment and taking LSD. In India, Howard and Keith had visited Haridwar, Rishikesh, Banaras, and other holy cities, experiencing Indian temples, hashish, and dysentery. One evening in Calcutta, they had come upon a group of sadhus chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and playing hand cymbals. For Howard and Keith, as for many Westerners, the essence of Indian philosophy was San- Shankara's doctrine of impersonal oneness. Everything is false except the one impersonal spirit. They had bought books that told them, whatever way you express your faith, that way is a valid spiritual path. Now the three roommates, Howard, Keith, and Valley, began to mix various philosophies into a hodgepodge of their own. Howard would mix in a little Whitman, Emerson, Thoreau, or Blake. Keith would cite biblical references, and Valley would add a bit of Buddhist wisdom. And they all kept up on Timothy Leary, Thomas A. Chemnitz, and many others. The whole mixture being subject to a total revaluation whenever one of the group experienced a new cosmic insight through LSD. This was the group that Howard returned to that day in July. Excitedly, he told them about the Swami, how he looked, and what he had said. Howard told how, after they had stood and talked together, the Swami had mentioned his place nearby on Second Avenue, where he was planning to hold some classes. Howard, I walked around the corner with him. He pointed out a small storefront building between First and Second Streets next door to a mobile filling station. It had been a curiosity shop, and someone had painted the words "Matchless Gifts" over the window. At that time, I did not realize how prophetic those words were. This is a good area, he asked me. I told him that I thought it was. I had no idea what he was going to offer at his classes, but I knew that all my friends would be glad that an Indian Swami was moving into the neighborhood. The word spread. Although it wasn't so easy now for Carl Jurgens and certain others to come up from the Bowery and Chinatown, they had other things to do. Roy Dubois, a 25-year-old writer for comic books, had visited Prabhupada on the Bowery, and when he heard about the Swami's new place, he wanted to drop by. James Greene and Bill Epstein had not forgotten the Swami and they wanted to come. The Paradox restaurant was still a live connection and brought new interested people, and others like Stephen Torino saw the Swami sign in the window. Steve, age 26, was a caseworker for the city's welfare department, and one day on his lunch break, as he was walking home from the welfare office at 50th Street and 2nd Avenue, he saw the Swami's sign taped to the window. He had been reading a paperback Gita, and he promised himself he would attend the Swami's class. That day, as he stood with the Swami before the storefront, Howard had also noticed the little sign in the window. Lectures in Bhagavad Gita, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Will you bring your friends? Prabhupada had asked. Yes, Howard promised. Monday evening. The summer evening was warm, and in the storefront the back windows and front door were open wide. Young men, several of them dressed in black denims and button-down sport shirts with broad dull stripes, had left their uh, worn sneakers by the front door and were now sitting on the floor. Most of them were from the Lower East Side. No one had had to go to great trouble to come here. The little room was barren. No pictures, no furniture, no rug, not even a chair. Only a few plain straw mats. A single bulb hung from the ceiling into the center of the room. It was 7 o'clock, and about a dozen people had gathered when the Swami suddenly opened the side door and entered the room. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and the saffron cloth that draped his torso left his arms and some of his chest bare. His complexion was smooth golden brown, and as they watched him, his head shaven, his ears long lobed, and his aspect grave, he seemed like pictures they would seen of the Buddha in meditation. He was old, yet erect in his posture, fresh and radiant. His forehead was decorated with the yellowish clay markings of the Vaishnavas. Prabhupada recognized big bearded Howard and smiled. You have brought your friends. Yes, Howard answered in his loud, resonant voice. Ha, very good. Prabhupada stepped out of his white shoes, sat down on a thin mat, faced his congregation, and indicated they could all be seated. He distributed several pairs of brass hand cymbals and briefly demonstrated the rhythm 1, 2, 3. He began playing a startling ringing sound. He began singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now it was the audience's turn. Chant, he told them. Some already knew. Gradually the others caught on, and after a few rounds all were chanting together. Most of these young men and the young women present had at one time or another embarked on the psychedelic voyage in search of a new world of expanded consciousness. Boldly and recklessly, they had entered the turbulent, forbidden waters of LSD, peyote, and magic mushrooms. Heedless of warnings, they had risked everything and done it. Yet there was merit in their valor, their eagerness to find the extra dimension of the self, to get beyond ordinary existence, even if they did not know what the beyond was or whether they would ever return to the comfort of the ordinary. Nonetheless, with whatever truth they had found, they remained unfulfilled, and whatever worlds they had reached, these young psychedelic voyagers had always returned to the lower east side. Now they were sampling the Hare Krishna mantra. So we stop here for today's reading. We see that a group of youth, Howard and his friends or his peers, how they were involved in intoxication. Although the intoxication being not for the sake of going into the highs, these people were trying to understand and explore the other dimension of spiritualism with the aid of intoxication, having a combination of their own experiences with different religions. Somehow, Prabhupada being getting in connection with Howard understanding Prabhupada's being an Indian spiritual master, brings his friends into Prabhupada's congregation. And we see how Prabhupada's is the first time like he gets them more than 12 um, people gathered for the first congregation at the storefront, and he initiates the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So let's see how it goes from here. Further reading, and we'll continue for chant.